A thin twig snaps in the darkness. Not far away, a fire crackles against the cold air, and sparks rise into a sky untouched by cities, satellites, or electric light. A man sits beside the flames. He has survived predators, disease, starvation, and winter. Yet his attention is focused on something unexpectedly small, his mouth. His fingers move carefully over his teeth, scraping at them with a frayed branch. The scene feels strangely familiar because thousands of years later, before checking messages, before drinking coffee, before beginning another day, billions of people will perform almost the same ritual. Not because it is pleasant, not because it is cosmetic, but because something inside the human story has always understood a simple and uncomfortable truth. A healthy mouth can mean the difference between comfort and suffering begins much earlier than most people imagine. Most people assume ancient humans had terrible teeth. That seems obvious. No dentist, no toothpaste, no mouthwash, no toothbrushes lined neatly beside sinks. Just dirt, smoke, meat, and survival. The image feels convincing. It is also incomplete, because when scientists began examining ancient human skulls, they discovered something unexpected. In many cases, prehistoric people had fewer cavities than modern humans, sometimes far fewer. The finding seemed almost absurd. How could people living in caves possess healthier teeth than people living in technologically advanced societies? The answer would reveal something unsettling about civilization itself. A tooth is a strange structure. It appears hard and permanent, almost like stone, but it exists within one of the most hostile environments in the human body. Every meal begins an attack. Every drink shifts chemical balances. Every microscopic organism inside the mouth competes for territory. Even now, while sitting quietly, an invisible war is taking place between bacteria, saliva, food particles, and enamel. Modern people often think dental problems are inevitable. Researchers increasingly suspect they are not. Many are consequences of environments humans were never designed to inhabit. And that story begins long before agriculture. Imagine waking up 40,000 years ago. There are no processed foods, no candy, no soft drinks, no hidden sugars dissolved into nearly everything. Food is difficult to obtain. Calories are precious. Every meal requires effort. Animals must be hunted. Plants must be gathered. Roots must be dug from hard ground. Nothing arrives packaged. Nothing arrives conveniently. And because food is tougher, harder, and more fibrous, ancient mouths worked differently. Every bite demanded force. Every meal became exercise. The jaw muscles of prehistoric humans were often larger than ours, their faces broader, their dental arches wider. The entire architecture of the skull reflected a lifestyle modern humans rarely experience. Researchers examining ancient remains noticed something remarkable. Crowded teeth, the problem that sends millions to orthodontists, appeared far less frequently. The mouth itself seemed designed for a harder world. But the deeper mystery remained. Even if cavities were less common, how did ancient humans actually clean their teeth? The answer emerges from fragments. A worn groove on a tooth. Fibers trapped between ancient teeth. Microscopic scratches preserved for thousands of years. Archaeology rarely provides complete stories. Instead, it offers clues. And sometimes those clues are surprisingly intimate. Scientists have discovered evidence suggesting that prehistoric humans used sticks, grasses, and plant fibers to remove food lodged between their teeth. Not occasionally, repeatedly. Some skeletons show patterns of were consistent with habitual tooth picking. In one sense, these ancient tools were primitive. In another, they were remarkably sophisticated, because they addressed a problem every human mouth eventually faces. Food gets trapped. Bacteria move in. Pain follows. Ancient humans understood the first part of that chain long before they understood the biology behind it. Most people imagine scientific knowledge arriving first and behavior following afterward. That is rarely how human history works. Behavior often arrives thousands of years before explanation. Humans learned fire before chemistry, farming before genetics, navigation before astronomy, and oral hygiene before microbiology. They did not know about bacteria. They did not know about plaque. They did not know about enamel demineralization. They simply knew that certain habits reduced suffering. And suffering is one of evolution's most persuasive teachers. Then researchers discovered something even stranger. Evidence of dentistry. Not modern dentistry. Something older. Far older. In a region that is now Pakistan, archaeologists uncovered human remains approximately 9,000 years old. Several teeth contained precisely drilled holes. The work appeared deliberate, careful, intentional. Tiny stone tools have been used to bore directly into diseased teeth. The implications were astonishing. People were performing dental procedures thousands of years before written history recorded them. Imagine the scene. No anesthesia, no sterile equipment, no understanding of infection, only pain, and a willingness to endure even greater pain in pursuit of relief. Civilization had barely begun, yet humanity was already fighting a war against tooth decay, a war that would never truly end. The common assumption is that technology solves problems. History tells a more complicated story. Sometimes technology creates new ones. For most of human existence, sugar was rare, extremely rare, a sweet fruit, a handful of berries, perhaps wild honey if someone was willing to risk angry insects. Then agriculture arrived, and everything changed. Gradually at first, then dramatically. Human diets shifted toward grains and carbohydrates. Populations expanded, settlements formed, cities emerged, and hidden within this triumph was an unexpected consequence. Teeth began to suffer. Researchers studying skeletal remains across different eras noticed a pattern repeated again and again. As societies adopted agriculture, rates of dental disease frequently increased. The very innovations that allowed civilizations to flourish were quietly transforming the human mouth. Progress carried a price. It often does. By the time refined sugar spread across the world, the situation became even more dramatic. The human brain evolved to crave sweetness because sweetness once signaled survival, energy, nutrition, opportunity. But evolution never anticipated supermarkets. It never anticipated soft drinks. It never anticipated desserts available every day of the year. Ancient humans searched landscapes for sweetness. Modern humans are surrounded by it. The result is not merely cultural. It is biological. The bacteria living inside human mouths adapted to this new abundance. And when they feast, enamel pays the cost. What appears to be a dental problem is partly an evolutionary mismatch, a collision between ancient instincts and modern environments. The same story appears throughout human existence. Our bodies remember worlds that no longer exist. Yet there is another layer to this story, a more philosophical one, because brushing teeth seems trivial, almost absurdly mundane. A minor task repeated every day. 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes at night. Hardly the stuff of grand documentaries, until you look closely, because hidden inside this simple act is one of humanity's oldest patterns, the refusal to surrender. Again and again, humans confront limitations imposed by nature. Cold, darkness, disease, distance, decay. And again, they respond with tools. A sharpened stone, a controlled fire, a woven shelter, a frayed twig rubbed against a tooth. The scale changes. The principle remains. Civilization is built from countless small rebellions against discomfort. Somewhere tonight, a child will brush their teeth before sleeping. The ritual will feel ordinary, forgettable, automatic. Yet that movement connects them to people separated by thousands of generations. Hunters staring into Ice Age fires, farmers standing beside the first fields, ancient craftsmen drilling diseased molars with stone tools. Individuals whose names disappeared long ago. Their languages vanished. Their worlds dissolved. But certain behaviors survived. Because they worked. Because pain remembered them. And because human beings possess a peculiar relationship with the future. We endure inconvenience today to prevent suffering tomorrow. That instinct may be one of our most defining traits. The toothbrush sitting beside a sink is not merely a tool. It is an artifact of a much older story. A story about adaptation, about biology colliding with environment, about evolution colliding with civilization, about creatures intelligent enough to notice patterns, but vulnerable enough to suffer their consequences. And perhaps that is the deeper lesson hidden inside something as ordinary as brushing teeth. When we examine the smallest human habits closely enough, they stop looking small. They become evidence. Evidence of a species constantly negotiating with reality, trying to stay healthy inside bodies that were never designed for the world they eventually created. The ancient human beside the fire could not imagine electric lights, skyscrapers, or global networks. But he understood something essential. Pain arrives quietly. Prevention requires effort. And survival often depends on noticing problems before they become impossible to ignore. Thousands of years later, standing before a mirror, we are still learning the same lesson. Only now, the reflection staring back carries the entire history of that struggle inside its smile.